XRP, the new Bitcoin, or are XRP and Bitcoin going to coexist together? I'm going to share with you in today's video my exact strategy and how I've used XRP and Bitcoin to not only radically transform my family's life, to beat what's called the hurdle rate, inflation. So in every video on the back end, if you stay till the end, I'm going to break down my exact strategy, not financial advice. This channel is about authenticity. I'm going to break down my exact strategy, my capital DR, cash flow, appreciating assets, protection and leverage, and de-risk, de-risk, de-risk. There's a lot of things happening within the ecosystems, within Twitter, social media, a lot of fear out there. Okay. Here's the thing. How do you suck out fear in these markets? Discipline, consistency, building an actual structured plan. You don't need the next best crypto. You need an ecosystem. That's why I've been successful. I have a spiritual ecosystem, a physical ecosystem, and a financial ecosystem. When I realized that I was done going to an HR manager or saying to somebody, here's my money, I hope that I'll retire. Hope is not a strategy. It's about taking sovereignty of your wealth, understanding we're moving into decentralization where you can become the bank. But here's the sad truth that by 2030, you're either going to be the owner of the picks and shovels or you're going to be the consumer. There will be no middle ground. The old financial strategy is dying off, a new one is coming in, and the system is changing right before your eyes. And as you look this way, there's always another narrative going on this way. So there was some crazy news yesterday around the XRP community, which I'm going to break down. Some people are saying that XRP is the new Bitcoin, but I'm going to share with you how I believe they're going to coexist, but I'm going to share with you how I'm using them to coexist to help my family build legacy wealth in the future. So let's dive right in. If you need any support at all, if you click down below in the description of this video or my social media platform, we have education programs where we can help support you to learn my capital DR strategy. Okay. We do not invest people's crypto. We'll never DM you about crypto. Be very careful with scammers. You can also report scammers down below in the description of my video or my social media platform. My only accounts are CoachJV_. This is my only YouTube channel. We do not invest people's crypto. We will never ask you to send us crypto. So please report all scam accounts. We built a whole ecosystem where you can report them 24 hours a day. All right, so let's dive right in. There's big news, and I wanted to say thank you so much for David Schwartz and all his amazing contributions, not only to the XRP community, but to Ripple himself. So a legend is stepping back from Ripple. Now, all the conspiracy theorists come out and like, oh my God, what's happening? Guys, sometimes people retire. Okay. Sometimes people just step off. Read it. He wants to be with his grandkids, but he also hinted in there he's working on something special. His time has come. Who knows? Maybe there's going to be a big liquidity event that he's having from the price appreciation on the back end of this year. Who knows? But what I don't do is I don't make financial decisions off this type of stuff. People are freaking out that David Schwartz, the CTO, is stepping down. Okay, we own 6 companies. People transition, people grow, people start new businesses. They're putting him on the board of directors. He's not going anywhere. So big shout out to David Schwartz, but that's not how you make your financial decisions. You sit back, you look at the overall functionality, you look at the company, you look at what he's done, you look at the structure, systems, processes. Now, if you believe of a new CTO comes in and you do your research, like Warren Buffett, and you don't agree with the new CTO or the leadership, then maybe you make a financial decision on that. But this isn't the type of things that you should make a financial decision on and think that XRP is going down. I mean, you see the Twitter post out there. People like, XRP is going down. It's like, come on, man. Come on. Swift is going with 30 different banks. Do you know how many banks there are in the world? Guys, that's not how this works. We're going to be okay. XRP is going to be here. Bitcoin's going to be here. It's all going to be okay. All right, so let's dive right in. So Cointelegraph posted this insight: XRP may be Wall Street's dark horse, with spot ETF filings in motion and some funds viewing it as the next Bitcoin. Been trying to tell you guys from 2020, it's going to be XRP and Bitcoin, number 1 and number 2. I don't know what order that will be, but I'm putting my money where my mouth is. For me, XRP is my number 1 holding by a long shot. Bitcoin is number 2. Solana is number 3. Those are my top 3. So I'm getting super hyper concentrated in my top 6 assets, which are XRP, Bitcoin, Solana, XLM, WLFI popped into the top 5, HBAR and VeChain. Those are my top 6. So as I build maturity and wisdom within my portfolio, inside and outside of crypto, I'm maturing into things that I believe are going to be here for the long term. I don't need 20 to 30 different cryptos, $500 spread out over here. I want to be hyper concentrated in assets that are going to actually radically transform the financial system. So this is powerful, guys. This is I don't think people realize how powerful these ETFs are coming in. XRP is not going anywhere, guys. Do you really think, like, let's just use logic, okay? Do you really think that Grayscale, okay, remember Grayscale. So who are the top holders in Bitcoin? Let's use logic. We got Satoshi, BlackRock, Strategy B. BlackRock is the top 3 holder in Strategy B. Grayscale in America. So Grayscale, one of the largest holders in the top 5 in Bitcoin in the world, outside of Satoshi, is also applied for an XRP ETF. It's all right here, okay? It's all right here. Do you think Grayscale has done some research? Do you think coin shares? Do you think Franklin Templeton? You think Franklin Templeton has done some research? Think about that, guys. Franklin Templeton, 1.5 trillion AUM. This is how I make my financial decisions. Not off hype, not off riddlers, not off dates, not flip of a switch. Actually, what the big money is doing. You're going to have an XRP ETF. You're having an Ethereum ETF. You have that already. You have a Bitcoin ETF. Okay. You're going to have the top 5 big. I think it'll be obviously Bitcoin, Ethereum, Solana. You're going to have, the XRP ETFs, and then financial advisors are now going to be making that part of a portfolio. They're going to say maybe 2 to 5%, right? Because what do they get paid under? Assets under management. So wouldn't you want to put a deflationary asset that's going to grow dramatically over time? Because if Mrs. Jones moves 5%, all the baby boomers, guys, hold all the wealth. So they're going to be going to these baby boomers and be like, hey, why don't you put this in your portfolio? Now, what's the difference between an ETF? It's an exchange traded fund. You're getting exposure to the asset class. You don't own XRP. You don't own Bitcoin. But Mrs. Jones is going to go into the bank, and that's a much easier way for Mrs. Jones to get involved, right? So she's going to walk in. All right, Mrs. Jones, before you head out to dinner, let's sit down and go over your portfolio really quickly. I'm suggesting you allocate 3% into Bitcoin, 1% into XRP, 2% into Solana, right? I'm just imagining what's going to happen, because that asset manager is like, hell yeah, this shit's going to go up, and my assets under management are going to go through the roof. And what does the bank do? They want as much money in the bank as possible, because what do? They make money in interest income, fee income, and capital markets income. As you leave your money in the bank, they go make bank. All right. So Bitcoin Magazine posts this. So this is what we're heading into right now. So October 1st, actually, I'm going to show you on the back end of this video. I'm also going to break down my whole Capital DR strategy. We are heading into October. Okay. This is what it usually looks like. September is usually down. September is usually a rough month, but in the financial, a lot of people are, going back and forth, but financially, in the financial space, we own a brokerage, a financial firm on the insurance side. It's typically in insurance, we boom on the back end of the year. The fourth quarter is always really good for financial institutions. Okay. I own one. So on the back end of a year, it just ideally goes up. There's a couple things happening here. People are coming off of summer. Okay. Remember, sell in May, go away. So this is what I'm trying to teach you, is there's just cycles to this. Everybody gets so caught up in red and green, and there's this stuff happening. There's cycles, just like the waves go in, the waves go out. So this is how it happens. Sell in May, go away. Okay. You got May, June, July, August go down. September's usually a little bumpy. Okay. And then the back end fourth quarter is always really good for financial institutions, because people start to make decisions. You got tax season coming up. A lot of businesses are holding their taxes off till October. So they got to make these big financial decisions. They're moving money into insurance. They're making money with their finances. They're coming back off of summer, right? They spent a bunch of money during summer. They got to get their accounts back up. So it's just part of a cycle. Okay. So it's always bullish for the markets in fourth quarter. So knowing that, that's why I pull profits on the back end of this year. And I'll explain that in just a moment. Okay. So we're going to continue on here. We're going to listen to billionaire Chamath saying selling Bitcoin was a $4 billion mistake. And on the back end, I'm going to share with you how I'm using XRP and Bitcoin in my capital strategy to build generational wealth for my family.
For you personally. Honestly, what I think about? I actually think about all the Bitcoin I sold.
Oof. Yeah,
I had Bitcoin. I had a bunch of Bitcoin in my funds when I managed outside capital.
Bitcoin and things like it is the equivalent of the red pill. Okay? We are entering a completely world of uncharted water right now.
Have you made any investments in Bitcoin?
So, I mean, I own Bitcoin in my hedge fund. I own Bitcoin in my fund. I own Bitcoin in my private account. It is a huge deal. It's a huge, huge, huge deal.
You know, that's a $3 or $4 billion mistake in growing now, because my partners at the time capitulated and I wanted to be a good team member, and we distributed and it was profitable. But obviously I shouldn't have sold it. Would have made them a lot more money.
Shouldn't have sold it. And I'll explain to you why I'm not selling mine on the back end. I'll explain to you how I'm actually leveraging it to build more cash flow. Okay, so let's continue on here. So we know XRP is going to be one of the biggest, in my opinion, one of the biggest assets out there. This is Telegram CEO says he thinks Bitcoin will go to 1 million. That's what they're all saying, 1 million. I know Kathy Woods has predicted, I think, 1 million to 3 million in the next by 2030, right? That's what they're saying. The government keeps printing money like no tomorrow. Nobody's printing Bitcoin. This is very important to understand.
In general, so you've been an early supporter of cryptocurrencies, Bitcoin. You've bought into Bitcoin early on. You kept buying. Maybe you could speak to the reasoning why you kept buying Bitcoin. Do you think Bitcoin will go to $1 million? Do you think it'll keep increasing? And Bitcoin and all the other cryptocurrencies.
I was a big believer in Bitcoins since more or less the start of it. I got to buy my first few thousand of Bitcoin in 2013, and I didn't care much. I think I bought at the local maximum. It's something like $700 per Bitcoin. And I just threw a couple of millions there. And a lot of people after Bitcoin later next year went down, somewhere close to 300, 200, started to express their sympathy to me. They say, "Oh, you poor fellow.
I love it.
You made this horrible mistake investing in this new thing."
I remember people were making fun of me when I bought Bitcoin at 25.
But don't feel bad about it. We still have some respect for you. And my response to them was, I don't care. I'm not going to sell it. I believe in this thing. I think this is the way money
Power of conviction right there.
should work.
Power of conviction.
Nobody can confiscate your Bitcoin from you. Nobody can censor you for political reasons. This is the ultimate means of exchange. And again, I'm now talking about Bitcoin, but it relates to cryptocurrencies in general. So I have been able to fund my lifestyle, so to say, from my Bitcoin investment. Some people think if I'm able to rent nice locations or fly private, it's because I somehow extract money from Telegram. But like I said, Telegram is a money-losing operation for me personally. Bitcoin is something that allowed me to stay afloat.
Okay, I want you to hear that because I'm going to break down my strategy, guys, on how I do this. I'm going to break down at a deep level on exactly what I do, okay? I'm going to drop some game. Okay, here we go. So this just came out actually 2 hours ago. Just in, Treasury Department is preparing to formally relax. I like that. A proposed rule to tax unrealized Bitcoin gains under CAMT. They should be doing that shit. Okay, so let's go into here. This is our new SEC chair. This is absolutely beautiful. Listen to him.
We are at a crossroads. If we follow the path of our predecessors, America risks ceding leadership in the next chapter of financial history. Already, novel products have fled the foreign markets. Entrepreneurs have built offshore structures to avoid our fragmented, convoluted system. So this ends now. To achieve this ambitious vision, our two agencies must work in lockstep to transform dual regulation from a source of confusion into a source of strength. Together, we can offer the best of both worlds, The investor protections that have defined U.S. markets, combined with an innovation-friendly approach that will keep us at the frontier of financial technology throughout the 21st century.
Okay. That's our new, what a difference, right? What a difference. Okay. So I'm going to bring this up on the screen. We're going to talk about the markets right now, and I'm going to break down my strategy in detail for you guys. Okay. So the markets right now, this is our demo account for Merlin, and I'll explain to you how we're going to put this into our ecosystem for you. Okay. It is going very, very slow. Okay. So let me just pull you guys on my screen, and I'll start breaking it down until that adjusts. Let's see. Okay, cool. So let's talk about how I'm using Bitcoin and XRP. So first thing we need to talk about is inflation. Okay. I don't hear a lot of people talking about this. Okay. You have what's called a hidden taxation, which is inflation. This is really important. Okay. Let me bring you fully on my screen. Okay. Okay. We have a hidden thing called taxation called inflation. 1913, the Federal Reserve was created, which is not Federal Reserve. Your dollars collapsed 96 to 97%. So I used to be in the banking system. I read the book Creature of Jekyll Island while I was at CBA Executive Banking School, and I was like, damn, this is how it works. Holy cow. I was a banker in this banking system, right? And they're not, it's not a nonprofit organization. It's in your account disclosures. It's not, a bank stores your money. It has convenience. I can pay bills. We use banks. I mean, they're not hiding what they're doing, right? They're holding your money. They're allowing you to pay your bills and transact and have a safe place to store your money. Safe. And they take that money, and what do? This is important. Write this down. They beat the hurdle rate. You put $100,000 in, they give you 0.1% on your $100,000, and they lend it to Mrs. Jones for a part of it for a down payment for a mortgage. Okay. Auto loan, credit card. Now there's an important thing called hurdle rate. Okay. Then we're running an inflation. Okay. So from 2020 to 2024, we had a cumulative inflation of 24%. So if you had $100,000 sitting in your bank account, this is really important. I want to explain this because then it'll help you understand my capital DR strategy that I created, and it's what I follow to the T. Okay. If you had $100,000 in your bank account, we're just going to, just simplify this. If inflation was 24%, it's not that things got more expensive. It's that the value of your dollar went down. Okay. So you lost 24% purchasing power without doing anything. Okay. So you're borrowing against your future self. So check this out. You have a $100,000 job. You get a $30,000 auto loan. You increased your buying power by $130,000, but you didn't increase your income. So then what most people do, the middle class and the working class, they ask, what is the payment? They don't ask what the interest rate is. We ask, what's the interest rate so we can beat the hurdle rate, so we can beat inflation and the interest rate and make sure that we have an asset that can pay for liability. Okay. So let's go back to that. You make $100,000 a year, you borrow a $30,000 car and you stretch it out over 72 months. And people ask, what's the payment? The issue with this is two issues. Number one is you're extending your buying power without increasing your income. Number two is that you're not beating inflation because that value of the car is going down. It's a liability. That's extended out over 72 months. Okay. You're going to have to flip that car into a new car, and you have inflation against you. So say it's an inflation of 3% every single year. You have inflation making things more expensive. The value of your car is going down. You got a 25-cent raise. You're not even beating inflation. And now you have a car that's going down in value. Then you have to flip it into a new car, which becomes more expensive. And now a $30,000 car is now going to become a $50,000 car because you have to roll the negative equity, and you're going to get poor every single year unless you start to become an investor and beat inflation. There's only 3 ways you can become wealthy. Number one is create businesses that solve massive problems for humanity and do a massive exit, or create a business that creates cash flow that you transmute into number two. Number 2 way is become an investor. Okay. Warren Buffett, he makes $1 million a day off Coca-Cola. So he takes his money and he puts it into businesses that are solving massive problems for humanity. Okay. Or number 3, you inherit the money. There's only 3 ways. Okay. You're not going to get rich in a job putting money in your 401k. It might feel like you're rich. So if you end up with $1 million, go study how many people retire with $1 million. $1 $1 million at 4% interest is $40,000 in retirement income. That is not wealthy. So the issue with Americans is we spend and then we're taught to save. We should be saving, richest man in Babylon, multiplying, creating assets that pay for the liabilities, and stop asking what the payment is, ask what the interest rate is. Okay, what is that actually going to cost you and your family in the future? So when I started looking at it that way, and I was like, I need to change. So I built a system. I focus on cash flow. Okay. So in the first bull run, people bought, and it's going to happen again. They're going to buy Lambos, watches, because they're so pent up. Like, oh my God, I finally made $1 million. And they're going to go buy a $300,000 car. They're going to buy $1 million home. You still got to pay the taxes. You still got to change the tires on that car. Okay. What we did is we built cash generating businesses. So we took our income from the bull run. We used Merlin. We exited on the way up. We had spreadsheets, and then we created Merlin. We exited on the way up, which I'm going to do over the next 3 months, and I'll explain my exact exit strategy in just a moment. I exited on the way up. That's first. Okay. I was in appreciating assets. Then I built C, cash flow. So now it's cash flow. So every single time I get paid, I take 10%, I put it into high risk synthetic options dividends that are paying me a large amount, creating more cash flow. I work to beat inflation by moving it into deflationary assets, which is A, assets, okay, that are deflationary. I use XRP and Bitcoin, my number one and number two. Why do I do that? They both have fixed supplies. My Bitcoin's gone up 200% since 2020. My XRP's gone up 800%. Okay. So as you lost 24% of your cash, I gained 800% on my, I'm not saying you have to do these. You go into an asset that beats what? Hurdle rate, inflation. All I'm teaching is with your cash that you get paid, you got to beat inflation. Stop borrowing against your future self and reversing it. You're burying. So like you're in a hole. Okay. Inflation, they're pouring dirt on it and it's getting deeper and deeper. And you have a backpack on with weights in it. Okay. And they're putting, your debt is putting more weights in the backpack. So they're pouring inflation in the hole. They're pouring dirt in the hole. You keep putting weights in the backpack and you're never going to get out of the hole unless you start transmuting your cash, which has no backing to it, and it's about to become worth less, into assets. It could be gold. It could be silver. It could be a house. You have to learn how to invest. You need to learn how to take sovereignty of your wealth. So I transmute cash flow into dividends that create more cash flow, 10%. The rest of it goes into deflationary assets. I store my wealth in Bitcoin or my excess capital in Bitcoin. I store it in XRP as well. Okay. And now my portfolio is XRP, Bitcoin, Solana, XLM, WFI, HBAR, VeChain. That's my top 6. I have many others and I'm going to consolidate into the top 3. Okay. So now that's cash flow into appreciating assets that fixed supply. This is how I do it. Okay. I'm not saying you have to do this. This is my system. Then when I profit from this category, which is my deflationary crypto, Bitcoin, we're going to move it off to the side. We're going to move it to leverage. Okay. That's the L in the capital strategy. Okay. Bitcoin, I'm never selling. And I'll explain in a moment. But altcoins, all other coins. So now we're going into the parabolic move here in the next couple months. I'm holding 50%. We're going to lock that in. Okay. 50% is never, that's legacy, never touching it. I'm exiting on the way up. Why? Because I have a system. I'm not in one asset class. I think that's ridiculous. I think you should be diversified. I think you should have protection. I move it into P. I max fund my policies. We set these policies up properly. That's the key. The reason why the life insurance industry has a bad rap is because number one, people are setting up a Lamborghini and they're putting regular gas in it. You have to have money in these policies, right? The key is family bank. We use them as a family bank, which goes into L, leverage. So number one, they need to be funded properly. The insurance agent gets paid off the death benefit. So if they're giving you a huge death benefit and you're barely putting $250 a month in, you're going to be, that's not how it works. You need cash in these things. The first 7 years are not sexy because of the cost of insurance. But if you put money into these and actually use them properly and understand the power of leverage, you can actually really accelerate your wealth to go back into cash flow. So let me explain. Okay. We appreciate, we move it into protection, insurance, max fund the policies. Okay. After the max fund, then I'll have some excess capital left over. Okay. I'll take 10% of the excess capital from my profits in crypto. And what will I do? I'll buy more cash generating dividends. Okay. So now I just created more cash flow once again. I'm moving into Warren Buffett style. I'm not going to buy more businesses. I would rather be passive. Okay. So I'm going to increase my cash flow even more. So in the bear market, I'm going to have a bunch of cash flow to buy more deflationary assets. Okay, then we have leverage. So now I turned $1 into 3. I took $1, actually into 4. I took $1, I bought cash flow, 10% of it. I moved it into deflationary assets. That dollar made another $1. That's 3. I moved that $1 into insurance, and now I have leverage. So now I can take that $1 and borrow $1 from it from the insurance company at low leverage at 5% and do what? Beat the hurdle rate, beat inflation. Okay. So if I'm borrowing at 5 and inflation is 3, what's my hurdle rate? 8%. So if I have 8% of cost of money over here and I can go get 50% on my Bitcoin, well, if I have $100,000 in the first year, I can borrow 60. I'm going to borrow 60 and I'm going to go put that 60 into something that'll grow 50% every year. So if my hurdle rate is 8 and I'm making 50, what's the math? Someone comment down below. So now I have this working over here. It's getting market-like returns. And if I borrowed at 5 and the market's making 7, I'm still making 2% on that 60. And then I have the 60 over here working, making 50% in Bitcoin. Okay. Very, very, very important. So it's cash flow into deflationary assets that have fixed supplies that grow over time. I'm following what the billionaires are doing. Okay. They're stuffing it into Bitcoin. I believe they're getting into XRP. Okay. I profit from these assets. I put some into protection. I hold some for legacy. Bitcoin we're never selling. And then I have leverage. And then I become my own bank. So an exact example of that, if you're still hanging out here, I'll share with you, is how I used my Bitcoin. I put it on Salt, a lending platform, a DeFi platform. I borrowed at 14%. People like, you borrowed at 14, but I borrowed from myself. They gave me cash, their cash at 14%. My Bitcoin never left. I bought the firm. Okay. The firm will be paid off this month. Okay. So I paid them back 14% interest, but Bitcoin grows on average every year about 50%. That will start to go down as more people come into it. But I made 36% of my money. I paid them back at 14, and then my LTV's back, and I'll be at 100% LTV, and I'll borrow again. I only go 25% leverage on my digital assets. Okay. You can go, I go as much as I can on insurance because you can't get liquidated. On the digital asset side, you can get liquidated. You got to be very disciplined. Okay. So then I borrow again, and I'll buy more cash generated dividends. Here's the thing. Leverage is like a match. It can either light the way or it can burn the house down. I'm talking about leverage to buy cash flow that can pay it back or buy something that will appreciate and beat the hurdle rate. You do not leverage to buy a Lambo off your assets. Okay. If you want to buy something, okay, if you're going to leverage, you leverage to buy cash flow, get a loan from the bank, let the cash flow pay for the thing. That's how you beat the system. So you shouldn't be asking, what's my payment going to be? You should be asking, what's my interest rate going to be? And if my interest rate is 7% and inflation is 3% every single year, and if you're not planning on making more money, you're literally taking away from your family, and you're going to be stuck in this monetary system that's an enslavement system that's going to trap you and your family, and it's going to pass down to your kids. There has to be one person in the family that draws a line in the sand, and it's you. Okay. So this is available to everybody. That's why Jim Rohn says you give $1 million to every person in society. Guess what? It's going to end up in the same 1%'s hand. So I love you guys. I appreciate you. That's my exact strategy. As we always say, warriors, let's get your shit together. Love you guys. Hey, in my bio, you can download the free book. Gives you all the breakdown of this. Love you guys.